Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. There are people continually coming into the room, so we will just go ahead, get started. It's being recorded, so you'll be able to listen to this webinar afterwards. Welcome to the fourth annual Higher Education webinar sponsored by the College Teaching and Learning Science Postmaster's Certificate program here at UMBC. And this year again, we are partnering with the Faculty Development Center at UMBC. The Associate Director, Dr. Jennifer Harrison, will lead off the Q&A session as I'm leading off the intro. She will follow up at the end. Welcome to our series on issues in higher education. My name is Dr. Eileen O'Brien, and I am the director of the College Teaching Certificate program. The program sits in the Department of Psychology since we are so well embedded in learning science, and it's administered by the Division of Professional Studies. The program prepares new grads, current faculty, or those transitioning to college teaching to enter the college classroom ready to reach our diverse students, design quality courses, use authentic assessment of learning, and deliver courses in varied modalities. For further information on our program, our link will be in the chat. Although our program is based in the state of Maryland, our students and topics for this series reach nationally. So welcome to our attendees from other time zones. Our Faculty Development Center is committed to state-of-the-art instruction, and therefore many of our UMBC faculty are also joining us. So welcome to you as well. Before we begin, I have to do some housekeeping items here. Please note that the session will be recorded for quality assurance purposes. In order to provide the best experience for you and all the other attendees, please keep your microphone muted throughout the entire session. If you're in need of closed captioning, visit the chat where we will tell you how to turn that function on so that you will have that captioning for you. If questions arise during the presentation, feel free to use the WebEx chat feature to submit your questions. In addition, we have the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. In the event we're unable to answer your questions, one of us will be in touch with you after the seminar. This presentation today is relevant to faculty in four-year colleges, two-year colleges, and those teaching graduate education. Since ChatGPT hit the public scene in 2022, generative AI has impacted nearly every part of higher education. In some cases, this has led to new AI tools being embraced by educators and administrators. In others, there have been active resistance to AI in any form, being used in teaching or used by students. And of course, there are continuing fears that AI makes it easier for students to cheat or to become lazy learners, or simply not to retain or understand what AI is trying to help them with. But whether you're an optimist, a pessimist, or in denial, AI is here. Students have been using it. Employers expect new hires to have foundational knowledge of AI, and technology is moving at a rapid pace. New research suggests that GenAI can enhance learning, while voices in education are concerned, thinking of it as Google on steroids. Our presenter today are from Georgia State University, and they are well versed on the research data and strategies that they're going to be sharing with us. Dr. Kassorla is on the AI expert panel for EDUCAUSE, leading the AI literacy community for higher education. A recipient of the Center for Excellence in Teaching, Learning, and Online Education Fellowship, she published Teaching with Generative AI in Mind in the EDUCAUSE Review. Dr. Novokshanova is a multimodal writing AI specialist, holding a PhD in rhetoric and composition from Georgia State, where her focus is on multimodal writing skills. A Dean's Fellow in Writing with AI, she has 25 years of experience teaching freshman composition and ESL at Georgia State. Collaborating with Dr. Kassorla on the Multimodal AI Project, Dr. Novokshanova investigates how integrating AI, multimodality, and digital writing tools into freshman composition can affect student performance and perceptions of the writing process. They have a new publication out. It is referred to Serious Play, and that publication link will be available to you at the end of their presentation. Without further ado, it's my honor and privilege to welcome Drs. Kassorla and Dr. Novokshanova. Ladies, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you for.
So Eugenia is going to start us out. I'm going to blink through it because we have like incredibly bad pollen. So if you see me crying over here, I'm both amazed and emotionally overwrought by Eugenia's presentation and the pollen.
So good morning, everybody. I guess it's already good afternoon. My name is Eugenia Novokshanova, and we have been introduced. So with all the accolades, let me just give you a very short introduction of what's the structure of this presentation, what we are going to cover, and then just get straight in because we have a lot of stuff to cover. So we do, this presentation will be very practical. We will really show you some specific assignments, specific rubrics, specific AI tools that we're using. But we first wanted to give you the framework, the theory. So something that can be called like our teaching philosophy that will really help you understand why we are doing what we are doing and how we are addressing these worries. Because as Dr. Aileen said, so yes, we went through all of the stages. So from denial to partial acceptance to a full acceptance and now to being advocates of AI integration. So that's why I will start with a brief theory, hopefully no more than 10 minutes, and then we'll get straight into the practical uses and integration of how we are using that, so that something that you can take out from this presentation. So we started to collaborate with Dr. Michelle Kassorla, I think as soon as ChatGPT went out in 2023, December, correct me if I'm wrong on the date here, and we started to integrate it since January. We have been working on this project for at least 2 years, and every month we are changing. So we are going deeper. We are adjusting to how AI is again updating, changing, and it's a constant process. So oh gosh, sorry. So our next slide. So since the topic of this presentation is enhancing critical thinking skills, we really wanted to tell you how we understand critical thinking, because that will be foundational for all the practical assignments that we will show you. So when we talk about critical thinking skills and education, I bet the first thing that comes on mind with you is the Bloom's taxonomy. This is the traditional Bloom's taxonomy for critical thinking, and you can see it as a hierarchical triangle with what they call foundational skills at the bottom and then top-up skills. It was developed something like in 1956, but not many know that it was really developed only for assessment, for setting learning outcomes and program goals. So originally, Bloom did not intend that to be used to teach thinking and to be used to teach critical thinking. So, and the misuse of this whole theory really has very serious implications. Since it was not originally used for teaching thinking because of its linear and hierarchical structure, our premise here is that all critical thinking is thinking. So when we think, a critical thinking is a subset of thinking. So what is important is to ignite, to initiate thinking. And then critical thinking is just a subset that will be ignited as we continue thinking. And what is important, again, some definitions, is that we believe here, that's another premise, is that When students delegate thinking for them to AI, this is an inappropriate use of AI. So and we'll talk about that later. So now AI can start that thinking, and the passive use of AI really leads to inappropriate passive use, leads to killing all thinking, including critical thinking. So that is why it's very, very important for us as educators to monitor, and not just to monitor, but to teach, to guide our students how they should be using AI actively, really not to kill any thinking, because it's like a muscle. If you stop thinking, you just, you need to exercise this muscle to continue thinking and become, can I say, more critical, but something like that. And our third premise is to initiate, to ignite thinking, there needs to be a productive friction. Even if you just think, when you think of something, you usually need a partner to bounce off these ideas. And unfortunately, that's not always available. So what is that productive friction? For us, productive friction is what sparks thinking. And that only occurs when we, and students including everybody else, encounter an intellectual challenge that disrupts certainty, when they ask questions, when they ask to interpret, when they ask to verify, when they ask to revise, when they ask to rebuild. So these are all the elements of thinking, both, whatever Bloom defines, some of them foundational, some of them higher order thinking skills. For us, it's all thinking. And it's non-linear, it happens, jumps simultaneously on from different levels and to different, as he called, types of thinking. And this cycle of productive friction, how does it happen? So when you have a new theory, a new piece of knowledge, you need to ask questions. So students need to raise doubts and seek clarity. Then they need to analyze, understand that information, interpret it, make a new sense out of this knowledge. Then they need to verify that, to confirm whether their new sense really matches the reality, if this is true, or especially in the age of AI with all the hallucinations. And when they go through all that cycle of productive friction, so they are ready to rebuild, reconstruct their knowledge, match it with the new reality, and construct new meanings, correct meanings. So we see that as a productive cycle that needs to happen in each assignment within each new piece of knowledge. And that's what we are trying to teach through our integrated use of AI. Because again, nobody can do it alone. I have Dr. Michelle Kassorla to bounce off all of the ideas I have. She does the same with me. So we have probably never been able to do what we show you here without each other. When we bounce our ideas off somebody else, we push each other to go deeper. But you know that not all of our students are privileged. Not all of them have educated parents or have excellent best teacher of the year who would have these assignments. Many of them just have no partners who would help them grow and start thinking and ignite this thinking. And that's when we enter AI. And that's where the whole brilliance, the whole advantage, it's really such a great partner in igniting that thinking. AI nowadays gives everybody, even those who don't have partners. So you can have AI as your partner to really start bouncing off and creating that friction and getting deeper and really go on and deeper and deeper in your thinking. So AI can push students to think more deeply by questioning and challenging them, if used properly. Because if it's not used properly, then students delegate that thinking skill to AI and they don't think. So AI does all the thinking and they're just passive recipients. So what we want to do with AI, we want to create responsible students, create student agency when they use AI as a collaborator, but when they do not delegate the thinking to AI. That's what kills thinking. That's what the danger is. Students need to be responsible users of AI and not to eliminate, but to invite and learn and know how to create this friction, productive friction, in the most favorable way. And that's what the whole goal of using AI in education seems to be for us. So in the age of AI, unfortunately, Bloom's breaks down because when you have AI as your collaborator, as your partner, you don't start from just understanding and then you don't move up. Students can just write a complete essay, just put in the prompt and AI does it for them. Is it good? No, because they're delegating thinking to AI. They're not thinking, but according to Bloom, that's a creation, the top level of that higher order thinking skills. But nowadays with AI, students can start with that. So yes, they can create something new, but then if they are guided and they know how to use AI and use that draft as a starting point, they can still ignite friction and create friction and ignite that whole all the other analytical thinking skills that would help them then revise, improve, and create a completely new project, I don't know, completely new idea based on whatever their first draft was. That's where we believe that in the age of AI, Bloom's really breaks down. Thinking is not hierarchical, and with AI, it can start at any level, and we as teachers can initiate that thinking and critical thinking, if you're used to call it this way. For us, again, all critical thinking is thinking. At each level, we can be very creative in how we do that and still help our students think and learn how to think, because they need to be taught how to think with AI, how to create that productive friction. And that's the AI paradox. So the paradox is that while AI can be a catalyst for thinking, delegating thinking to AI kills thinking. So uncontrolled use of AI will stop critical thinking, will stop thinking, will just stop the whole learning process. If students are on their own and then they don't know how to use AI because nobody taught them, everybody just said that it's bad, it's cheating, you should never use it. But then they still use it, but they use it inappropriately. But delegating that thinking to AI kills thinking. But using AI as a guided tool really improves, teaches, enhances that thinking skills and allows all of our students, it levels the playground for all of our students to excel. And it's all about that productive friction. Used strategically, it's not a shortcut, it's a stimulus. That's our premise. Now, yes, it's all nice, you would say, yes, we agree with you, it's great, but how do we do that? How do we stop our students from just copy-pasting prompts and then just delegating that thinking for students and not passing this for them? It's not easy. I can say that I'm successful. I'll speak for myself here all the time. I still can catch up AI use here and there, but we believe that 3 ways to teach thinking with AI to start, maybe there are more, is dialogic interaction with AI, prompt engineering, as teaching prompt engineering in your class as an intellectual practice, and intentional AI-informed assignment design, which includes assessment. Unfortunately, the way, again, we see it with Dr. Kassorla is we are in the new teaching paradigm. We have to revisit who we are, what our role as teachers are, and how we can continue to help our students and not just let them redelegate that thinking to AI. So I will speak briefly about dialogic interaction with AI and give you some examples of how we use it, what it is, and then Dr. Kassorla will move to prompt engineering and will show you some AI tools and intentional and discuss how we adjusted, how we changed our whole pedagogy. Okay, so dialogic interaction with AI as a training ground. So again, as we said, students, they strive. Everybody wants to find an easy way out. That's why their desire is to eliminate friction when they use AI. But we want them to increase that friction. And if we have time at the end of the presentation, we can share some anecdotes with you how our students always say that, oh my gosh, it's too much friction. We thought it will be easy, but it's usually the other way around because we force them to think. When I talk about the dialogic interaction, I really discuss how students talk to AI, why they do it, and how they do it, and why and how pretty much. But when we teach that friction, We do it under these three premises, under these three conditions. We teach them an ethical, responsible, and effective use of AI. Ethical, it means that they do not redelegate agency to AI. They do not let AI write for them. They only ask it for some guidance, for some pushback, but do not allow any explicit writing for them. Responsible use for us means that they stay in charge of the session, because again, you can set up some boundaries for AI, but it can break it and it can start doing something that you didn't ask it to do in the beginning. That's where they really need to stay in control of their session and ask AI to follow their own goals. And if AI doesn't do that, put it back on track. Effective means that they use AI to meet the assignment outcomes. They know what we want them to do. So not just a prompt that they copy, they really know specific learning outcomes. They know the requirements for that assignment. They know how we will be grading them. And if AI is recommending, suggesting to do something that will not lead them to meeting our requirements, then they need again to put it back on track and stay on track of how we as teachers want this assignment to be done. So they need to be thinking critically of all AI suggestions. So that conversation with AI needs to be ethical, responsible, and effective. And if used correctly, it's such a powerful tool to teach thinking and critical thinking. Let me share with you a specific assignment. And I didn't say that, but both Dr. Kassorla and I, we are teaching English composition, composition 1 and 2, freshman comp. So my example will come from my class, of course. So let me show you a very specific assignment so that we as writing teachers do. So for each essay, we ask our students to use AI as a tutor. And we give them a specific prompt that we want them in the beginning, for the very first essay, just to copy and paste. But as we are teaching prompting skills, so then they can use their own prompts in the future. So, but they usually begin with a good example. We give them the prompt. And we give them a warning about being responsible, effective, and ethical. So it's in red, they know what to do. We tell them to copy and paste the prompt, and then use AI as a tutor, so that AI gives them specific recommendations on how to improve it. But our goal here is really to check how students are acting, behaving in that dialogue with AI. That's how the assignment looks like. It's an AI-assisted revision. We ask them to give us a link to the AI conversation. Then we ask them to give us the original paragraph written without any AI. And then we ask them for a revised paragraph, something that they did after the AI revision. And then they always do a reflection. And I will show you some prompts that we use for that. So that's usually how all of our AI assisted assignments look like. First, they do something on their own. Then they use AI's help. They paste that, and then they reflect, where they tell us what they did, how they did it, why they did that, what went well, what didn't, something that didn't go very well. This is the actual AI link from a student, and the way they do that, you can now create links from any chatbot. So there's a tool, a link where you can just click share, and as long as students are logged in, they will always have it saved in their history, and you will always have access to their AI conversation.
Unless they're using Microsoft Copilot. If you're using Enterprise Microsoft Copilot, there's no shared link. That's the only one.
So I will not show you this link because that is more applicable to this specific assignment. But I want to share with you. Oops, sorry. Sorry. That's the wrong slide. Why didn't I go? How can I make that I click the link? It's not clickable. Okay, give me 1 second. I want to show you a specific interaction. Okay, this is an example of student AI-assisted revision. and it is long, but I just want to point some things so that you understand better what students are doing. So first they just copy paste the prompt, then they're prompted to put their original writing, and then AI is just asking questions. And we call it more like a semi-Socratic type of tutoring. So it's guiding them through questions. And then it might suggest some revisions, or if a student doesn't understand, we usually ask it to tell AI that, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you give me some examples, but not examples from my own writing? So just to clarify that, this is a responsible for us use of AI. It is very interesting how a student interacts with AI, and that assignment was done last week at the end of the semester. Her interaction was completely different in the beginning, almost no. You see, as she's doing her revision, she is adding a note to AI for reference, so that AI stays informed. The student communicates to AI, clarifying her own point. As she is guided further, so again, you can see how the student separates her revision and then her communication, her dialogue, her interaction with AI over here. I think I'm ready to move forth now. And then let's only be concerned about Harvard Gazette. So probably AI asked for something else and the student put it back on track, saying this is not what I want. Notice that AI is never writing anything, any sentence for a student. So AI is just guiding the student. And then something even funnier happened. So a student started to do postscriptums to AI. So this is really, really interesting. I feel like a more detailed metric would deviate from a topic or cause it to be too wordy. You see how, again, it's not, the student is critically evaluating AI suggestions and pushing back, saying this is not what I want, or maybe this is not what the instructor wanted. So she does it through this postscriptums, which is really funny. And this is valuable because this is metacognition. This is understanding your requirements. This is, it's thinking. And this is exactly what we are talking about here when we talk about dialogic interactions. And then she continues with her postscriptums, which are very, very cute. And then at the end, she says she's very happy. This is how we use in writing. How do we evaluate it? We evaluate it based on the effectiveness of their dialogue with AI only. We don't here assess how the revised paragraph is better too much, but we do look at that. Here is an example for you. I will not read it. You will have access to that. I will just show you that they are evaluated on the 3 criteria: effective use, responsible use, and ethical use. And we tell them, okay, effective use. You worked with AI like a smart editor. You asked good questions, spotted when it gave you off-track advice, and made smart changes that clearly improved your writing. Responsible. You stayed in control. You used multiple prompts to fix different parts of your writing and showed a smart step-by-step plan. Ethical. You made sure that you stayed the writer. If AI tried to take over or write the whole sections, you pushed back, redirected, or changed the content. And then we ask for a reflection. What part of your writing improved the most? Again, it's thinking. It's very critical thinking. Describe a moment when you disagreed. Why? How did you stay in control? What choices did you make? So this metacognitive awareness does push them to think, and reflective thinking, by the way, is called critical thinking. So that's where that critical thinking, higher order thinking skills get in the whole theory. So my last slide will be just to give you some examples of how you can use dialogic interaction across different disciplines. You can all do it in all of your disciplines. You probably now have some ideas how you can use it, but just to get you started, AI helped me with that slide, I must be honest. So science, for example, hypothesis refinement with an AI dialogue. Students write a hypothesis and use AI to test and challenge that. Which is very difficult, by the way. So that's the hardest of our assignments when our students choose their research topics and write the hypothesis. Psychology, case study analysis, and theory matching. How it works. Students analyze a case, ask AI for theory matches, and then correct or reject AI's mismatching based on some specific grounds. History or political science, counter-argument development. Students present a historical or political position, prompt AI for opposition, and then refine their argument, pushing back on this flawed AI reasoning. So there are lots of different ways how you can really use that dialogic interaction, as long as you monitor and reinforce that ethical, responsible, and effective use of AI through, again, monitoring the AI links. I'm sorry, I was trying to get through that really quickly. I'm done so that Dr. Kassorla can show you some cool stuff.
We want to talk about prompt engineering as thinking. So we're English professors, which puts us in this very interesting place right now in history. We've always been teaching writing as a tool, not as really a subject, but as a tool. And suddenly English has become, as Andrew Kaparthi said, it has become the most popular language for computer programming. So we have a really big responsibility to teach prompting in our class and to recognize it for what it is. It is a critical thinking, and we are teaching it when we teach prompting. So there's a couple of different ways to do prompting. One is zero-shot prompts. That's just asking for something and hoping for the best. Then there's some many-shot prompting, which you give examples or you share how an outcome should look for more specific prompts. And you can add many of those. That's why it's called many-shot prompts. You can do 2, 3, 5, 12, whatever. And then we have what's called chain of thought prompting, which Eugenia and I use a lot in our tutorial. If you go back and look through that tutorial that is in that slideshow, you will see that we're using chain of thought prompting. So that's giving a series of steps to the AI so that it must move through each step towards a result. And we even number them out. And we teach our students to do that as well. And then there's RAG prompting, which is retrieval augmented generative prompting, which provides information in addition to the LLM's training data. This is like when you upload an article and ask it to take a look at the article and make the changes or give you a summary. Or, for example, a really good example of this is to upload your resume and upload a job requirement, a job you're trying to apply for, and then saying to the LLM, saying to the generative AI, look, I want to apply for this job. Here's my resume. I want you to optimize my resume towards this job. And I also want you to write me a letter of application based on my resume. And that's RAG prompting. So it's really useful for a whole bunch of really great things. Okay, so we are using prompting within, of course, some different LLMs. So can you see, okay, can you see my screen that says welcome to Notebook LM? No?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, good,
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so this is Notebook LM, and this is one of the ways that we work with our students. We realized very early on that our students weren't reading very well. I mean, they can sound out words and figure out what they mean, but they aren't really reading content very well. They're not capable of reading research papers, reading scientific journals, stuff like that. So we need to bring our students up to that level, and a lot of them come to us, especially as community college professors. A lot of them come to us with very, very weak reading. They come to us with weak writing too, and our job in 15 weeks is to try to get them ready for anything that might be thrown at them in any class. So we have really a lot of work to do. So one of the things that we want to do is teach them how to read a research article with AI. So this is Notebook LM. This is a Google product. It's free. The only limitation is that you have to be 18 or older to use it. So we have some alternative products that we use for our under 18 crowd. But most of them wanted to get on Fortnite a couple of years ago and faked their age anyway. So they're considered 18, even usually when they come in, they're 16. And whatever we do, we tell them, do not lie. Please don't lie. I'm not telling you to lie. Don't lie. Okay, so this is an example of one of the research notebooks that we might have for our students. We tell them to actually specifically call it their 1102 research project because we want them to set up the notebook that way. And I'm going to go back here and just show you, these are all the notebooks that I currently have in my Notebook LM. What I use them for myself is like crazy things like my year-end report for the college when I have to give my reports. So I put all the stuff that I've done for the year in here, and I asked Notebook LM to produce a document that talks about what I've done. It's much easier to just over the year, and these are things that I've done this year, over the just keep adding those things, and then you've got this great place that you're going to be holding all of your information, and Notebook LM can help you. So it helps really well with your career as well. So here's our research project. Now these are pretend sources for this pretend student, and this student is doing it on neuroimaging with AI. And so this is actually based on one of my students' projects. So what the Notebook LM will do is it will take all of these and it will summarize what's in here just as a whole notebook, okay? Down here, the student can ask specific questions. So I might want to say something like, can you tell me how long AI has been used in neuroimaging? And it will come back with an answer. Now, the really great thing about this is it's not going outside of the notebook for this. Notebook LM works only within the notebook. So there's no outside stuff happening. We have a lot less hallucination. And to fight hallucination even further, and by the way, hallucination is the term de rigueur of of what they call it when AI makes stuff up. So, and it does make stuff up. So we tell our students be really careful about hallucinations. So they can go in here and they can start to find information by, I can just go here, it tells me what paper this is from, but if I click on it, it will actually show me the paper, will show me the specific place in the paper that that information is located. So I can read it, and I can also access, this is a video, for example, and I can access the content to make sure that it's going back and doing that. So it's really cool when I can start to read that information and understand what I have in my notebook even more than I would possibly have understood it before. Over here, I can keep notes of anything that I'm doing. And of course, the thing that most people are very interested in is this interactive podcast, which I'm hoping it's going to add. Dun, 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 dun. It's okay, so let's try this.
All right, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going on a fascinating journey exploring the world of AI in neurology.
Sounds pretty exciting.
It is. We've got some awesome sources to dive into. We have a YouTube video from the USC Stevens Neuroimaging and Informatics Institute.
Oh, I've seen their work. It's amazing.
Yeah, they're doing some really cutting edge stuff. And then we have a research paper that's all about using AI to analyze brain images.
Oh, our listeners got something to share. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I'm really interested in knowing how AI is being used in the emergency room for head trauma cases.
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
It really highlights how immediate the impact of AI can be.
You know, that review we were about to mention from Frontiers in Neurology.
The one about AI in emergency settings.
Exactly. It touches on precisely that.
It's amazing how quickly AI is.
Okay, so it will do this podcast feature, and your students can actually interact with the podcast, which is super, super cool. So this has got our students excited about reading the material that they're studying in their class. And for our class, we're doing a lot of research stuff where they choose their own research topic, okay? They have agency to do that, and then they're getting the sources, they're putting them into Notebook LM, and they're prompting. So I was talking about prompting. Let me go back here really quick, and I'm going to show you one other tool that we're using a lot of, which is SciSpace. This is at typeset.io or scispace.com. This is a really amazing research platform for science. I don't know how many of you used it. Have you guys used this? It's incredible. There is a very limited number of queries allowed per day for our students. So we were using this as a primary tool before Notebook LM came out, but it got, they shortened the ability for our students to use it effectively. So we tell them it's a good tool, but let's, keep your stuff limited. So I'm going to stick something in here, and I can say, I am trying to find some research data on using AI in emergency rooms in head trauma cases. And so it will actually search through research libraries to find me relevant papers. And a lot of times it'll ask me to narrow these down, which is really great because our students don't think about this narrow aspect of what they need to be asking, and it gives some specific information. So I'm going to say one. I'm just going to choose one. Okay. So it's going to go through and find queries to broaden the search. And our students can then start to use this to develop their thesis statements, to narrow their topics, to find research gaps. And you're saying find research gaps for freshmen in a composition course in community college? And I'm saying yes. We need to really start teaching this stuff. And AI is allowing us to move our students to the point where they can start to use research. We don't have to keep talking about dangling participles and how to write a paragraph. AI is really taking care of those mechanics for us. So now the students can start to use their brains in a way that is really creative and is truly engaging with research, which is really wonderful for our students. And we have found that they are really excited about how this is helping them bloom and go into what they want to do. So, all right. So we're doing also intentional AI-informed assignment design. We're doing process over product, lots of formative assessment. We weren't doing that before, and we realized that we weren't listening to our education professors who really know what they're talking about. Okay, so we started working with formative assessment, which we hadn't been doing before. We've started adjusting our rubrics for an AI integrated future, and we have a lot of metacognitive stuff. So this is how we've done this. Students prompt AI, tutor, students participate in peer response, students complete reflective footnotes, teachers revise lessons in response to student feedback, and it goes around and around. We have scaffolded assignments so that all of our assignments are leading up to a major project, and really simply, they can't do the major project without all of those assignments. So it's process over product. And then we have AI-informed rubrics that are based on the fact that our students are using AI and they're using it in a very effective, ethical, and responsible way. So for example, this is an example of our flat grading design that promotes process over product. So as you can see, we have, for example, this is essay 1 right here, their major essay. That's worth just as much as their discussion posts. And the reason why is they had to do all these things to get ready for this essay, and all of them are important to the essay, and the essay really is just writing the essay after they've done all this work. It's very little work, actually. And so now they're only getting 10% for that final draft essay, but we don't have a winner-take-all situation where our students are wanting to cheat because there's a big project. We also are using AI-informed rubrics. So we're focusing on the following 5 things in our rubrics. And the way that we came out with these 5 things is we thought about what are employers going to want from our students in 5 years, okay, from AI, if they're using AI. And then we worked backwards. Eugenia is really good at finding that backwards design and applying it to what we're doing. So we just come up with really good questions, and then we start to work backwards. So we want to make sure our students know how to follow instructions. Our instructions are extremely careful and very detailed, and may occur over many content pages, so that our students have to follow these directions. We want them fact checking. We want to make sure that they have evidence. Everything is evidence-based, that they're transparent about their AI use. They're telling us what they used, why they used it, how they used it. And at the end, that they have this metacognitive reflection. They understand what they're doing. It's very intentional. And they're paying attention to their own learning process because we want to build agency in our students. And that metacognitive awareness, we do two types: reflection in action. We have them do reflective footnotes. This is really cool. This is something that Eugenia came up with before I met her. And what you do is when you're writing, or make sure, let's say you're doing a calculus, some kind of equation in calculus, you would put a footnote in there. And you would say, why did you choose this formula to solve this problem? Or in history, why did you apply this particular court case to what you're talking about? So these are the kind of reflective in-action footnotes that you can look forward to. We're asking our students to talk about the process. Why did you choose to write it this way? Why did you choose to use this evidence? Why? But not talk about the paper's topic at all, but talk about their own process. And then we have reflection after action. This is reflection paragraphs after they've finished a project. What did you do? How did you progress through this? And we also have what are called advancing reflection prompts. And these do follow a lot of Bloom's taxonomy. So every time we have them reflect, we're having them go deeper. You know, the first reflection might be something like, how did you feel about this? And then the second one would be, you know, tell us a little bit more about how you produced this and why you think that you produced it effectively. And then the third, you know, so we keep going deeper and deeper and deeper with each reflection assignment. So I want to leave you some time for questions, so I rushed through a little bit, but we do want to share our practical AI for teaching, which you can get from this QR code. I'll leave it up for a minute. And also there's this link, and you will of course get the slides later, but we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to ask some questions of us to find out what we're doing and how we're doing it. I'm going to leave this up while we're asking questions, so go on ahead. Just for a minute.
Thank you. What a session. I've seen so many different things that I didn't realize are out there or available. And I wish I had this as a grad student when I was in school, you know. But anyway, thank you both. I would like to address some of the questions that are in the chat, but I would defer to Jennifer Harrison, who I believe is trying to unmute.
Hi, Jennifer.
Did I get you?
I haven't heard her yet.
Harrison, and I am with the Faculty Development Center, and we're just delighted to learn from you today. We appreciate you being here, and we really appreciate all the insights you provided for creating assignments that challenge students to move forward with AI and giving us some different ideas to think about it. One of the challenges we've been looking at UMBC and discussing is, you know, once you have created these optimized assignments for the students, what do you think about asking AI to help you analyze the student work that comes back to you? Is that something that you do when you're receiving the student work? As English teachers, you have tons of grading to do. Do you use AI to help you think about the students' responses to see if they've met the desired results of your backward design and so forth?
Well, I'll let Eugenia answer first, and then I'll give you my answer.
Well, I'm a more cautious user. So I thought for a very long time that using AI in writing for students is cheating, and using AI to grade is cheating. So I was just starting at that premise. But now, yes, I do use AI for grading. The way how I do it, since like we teach 5 sections of 1101 course, 25 students in each section, it's per semester, and they write 4 essays. every 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks we get 125 essays, which is not just manageable. So the way how I do it, so I create prompts, I give AI all my directions, I explain the goal for that assignment, and I give it the rubric that I will be using to rate that assignment. And then I eliminate all student identification, like their names or anything from their writing, and I do give it to AI for the initial impression, and I ask AI to give me 3 recommendations for the student how to improve content and maybe structure. Then I read the student paper myself, and I leave in, we call it inline feedback, where I leave my brief feedback on some structural elements, which is really not, it doesn't require me that deep thinking. So in that case, I provide more structural notes for students, how to improve a signal phrase, how to improve maybe the integration of an image, which we teach in integration of a graph. And I combine it with AI's, again, I check it, of course, I read the whole essay to make sure that I agree with AI. So my feedback is now twice more. I combine mine with AI's, where AI does the content, how to improve this idea, how to develop it even further with more questions, and I focus on structure and more development. I would put it that way.
So we have
Great,
to
thank you.
add, we have to add the note that our SOTL, which is called SOTL actually, because it includes online education, but our SOTL has given us permission as professors to use the Microsoft Enterprise Copilot, because it does not share the information beyond the university, so it complies with FERPA. So we can use that for our grading. We wouldn't use it with our students because our students can't share a chat link from that, but we do use it with grading. Now, I use it in a very different way, which is I put the student's essay in, and I ask it, and my rubric, and I ask it for advice for the student. Then I read the paper over and I look at what the chatbot has said, and then it gives me some idea of things that I may have forgotten to mention to the student when I gave them feedback. So it's kind of like sharing that burden with me, but we are still looking, because we have very specific requirements, weird things that we're looking for. I think that we end up doing most of the work still.
Well, thank you both for offering us insights about that. And what I hear you both saying is that you're still actively involved in engaging with each of those papers, giving students personalized feedback, but using AI in different ways to kind of bolster your capacity in terms of helping the students to grow and learn from what you've offered. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, you can't trust AI to do it for you. AI will hallucinate, and you don't know what it's going to do. So you can't just hand it over to AI.
And my feedback is now twice more detailed, I would say. So I never have time.
Mine too.
Every student writes on a different topic. Like one student is writing a deep research on Neuralinks. I don't understand what he's writing about, because I don't know anything about Neuralinks. That's where I can check his development, his structure, his organization, and AI really helps with how he can develop the ideas of these Neuralinks further, check it, engage with more papers. So it's more of the content behind each paper, and it becomes, I think, much more productive and deeper. It's twice more feedback, I would put it that way. But I was able to grade only 8 papers per session. Now I can do something like 20. So it did help me a lot.
Great, thank you so much. And let me turn it back over to Eileen, Dr. O'Brien, and because we're almost out of time, and see if she wanted to wrap up or have any final questions.
I think there were some questions from Chuck Woody, and I tried to unmute you. I think you can unmute and ask those questions now. Are you able to unmute?
I have a little time after this, so if we want to go a little bit over, I don't mind.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I apologize. I'm kind of a weirdo because I can understand this, but I have a background in engineering, so I'm sorry about the type of my questions. But first off, I'm going to talk about hallucinations very quickly. Humans can hallucinate, and in 2022, I had a stroke. And one of the things I lost was my ability to hear. And then suddenly it started coming back. but it was not hearing. The words would be jumbled, the words would be delayed, but part of my mind said that's not right. And the question I had is, how do I know it's not right? I don't know what the trust is. I don't trust the hearing, but how do I know to trust what's right? That's when I came to the idea of RAG and start researching it. And that's realistically how you can really look at hallucinations. People talk about hallucinations, but humans hallucinate all the time. And from personally dealing with that, that's how I got so deep into this. As an engineer initially, I hate using the word AI, but I didn't believe in AI at all. And it was just an engineering thing, and getting to a long story, but I won't. But it was with that I finally really started looking at it. And that's when I came to, I'm not going to talk about, the marketing silliness, chat GPT or whatever. I'm just going to talk about LLMs. And that's when I came to looking at this and its ability to, LLM's ability to take the opposite side, or more interestingly, take a expert side like a college professor and then analyze something, and then you respond to the analysis of that. And I don't know how many, just last night I did this and AI disagreed with me. And it actually partially convinced me because of these disagreements. So the question I'm getting to is that you really can't recommend one particular, like when you say chat GPT, I kind of really grimace, so that you really shouldn't look at it from chat GPT. You just look at it from LLMs. That's why I mentioned AWS Bedrock. I'm not promoting AWS Bedrock, but what it does, it gives you a bunch of different LLMs. And I just wanted to get the panel's response on using it in this context, and also fusing things together with a bunch of different LLMs and using RAG to constantly look at it. You have to have it constantly check itself. And also, before you really do this, you have to understand your position and biases so that you can truly interact back and forth with the LLMs. And I just want for what I'm doing, the panel to just generally comment on that. And I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the reasons why we use Notebook LM is for that RAG interaction, because it doesn't go outside of the notebook. So it's really RAG based. As for the LLMs in general, we might say Chat GPT because it's helpful for the presentation, because most people are only familiar really with one or two. But we teach our students to use a whole bunch of different, not only LLMs, but image generators, ideogram, for example. We have them use Napkin to make a whole bunch of infographics. We have video producers, songs, everything else. So we're constantly having them use a whole bunch of different tools. And we want them to be able to have that kind of fluency. And we try to build our class towards encouraging our students to be fluent with a whole bunch of different topics. That's why the last thing that we say is efficient, because we want our students to be able to get that efficiency through the use of not only the LLM that they happen to be using at that time, but also many LLMs, and know which tool is right.
There are varied LLMs out there: Claude, Latimer, Perplexity. They're just exploding right now, I think, with so many different versions. John Schumacher made a very good statement here. He says, sounds like we need to also teach faculty how to use effectively, responsibly, ethically as you teach students, which can be a challenge in and of itself. Have you worked with other faculty in helping them do this?
Michelle, you answer.
Okay.
It's difficult. We are not asked that much. Yes.
I'm the least politically astute of the two of us. Look, we are prophets in a small village. Nobody takes us, nobody pays attention to what we're doing in our own college, or especially in our own department. In fact, it's if they could put their fingers in their ears and hum when they walked past us in our department, I think they would do so, because they don't want to deal with AI. They're really afraid of it, and they're not really ready to entertain it. However, we have worked with a lot of different faculty across the nation, and we have tried our best to crack that nut of our own department, but it seems to be the hardest one to crack.
Yeah,
But it's
Yeah.
coming on. It's yes. So usually people begin with, like I did, resist AI, and I really thought it will kill writing. So it took me a year of using it to start accepting that it doesn't really happen overnight. Maybe it will be, since it will be more prevailing, it will be easier. That shift wasn't easy for me. So it
I was her
really
productive
here.
friction.
Yeah, she was pushing into using that, and I
Yeah.
would say I would only use it in a certain, like, with a certain methodology. For me, I was very cautiously guarding myself as the expert. It took me a year to slowly start to accept it, and then a year with a more excited use when I started to understand how to use it. Who am I? What is my role here?
Yeah.
But it doesn't really happen quickly. Just to listen. Usually, it's just if you are not already thinking of how to use it, and if you don't start with a premise that it's a friend, not a foe, it's a long process. It doesn't really happen after one panel and after one webinar. So you have to start using that to see that it's not a threat. At least for me, it took a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Other issues seem to be emerging in the chat, that with regard to the question of loss of intellectual property, the concern around privacy. Karen Lockheed makes a good point here. Use the example of uploading a resume. And oftentimes in that resume, you have a wealth of personally identifiable information. Do you agree we remove some of that? I mean, what are the limitations there, and what is your concern with regard to intellectual property and privacy?
So we talk to our students about this. We tell them not to put in personally identifiable information into a general LLM. However, they can use the Copilot enterprise system for those more sensitive things like a resume. And we do talk specifically about these issues. However, there's all the other side too, which is if I'm going into the LLM, if I'm signing in with my Google ID, for example, they already know probably more than anything I would put on a resume about me. That all of that meta information is already owned by Google about me because I used, social media networks, and I use Google Docs and everything else. So we also talk about that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as far as loss of intellectual property, I always tell students when they're putting information into AI, AI is taking it in, it's learning from what they're putting in, that you really now are sharing information very, very broadly, which I don't know that they have a sense is a problem or a concern. I think it's such a learning curve using AI for students. Is there, I don't know, would you recommend a special course on the use of AI in community colleges and four-year colleges as foundational for then moving into other courses?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they're going to use it the way they can. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably why we're teaching in composition 1 and 2, because we know that every student has to have those two classes. Now we're the only two people doing that in our department. As far as there's one other online instructor who's using
some more now, so people are coming along.
Yeah.
So
but they're not doing it to the same extent that we're doing. I mean, we do it every single lesson for 2 years, so we're really deeply entrenched. And some people say, well, what if your student doesn't want to use AI? What if they, and we say, look, there's 70 people teaching composition, and there's probably 3 or 4 of us using AI. So you have a big bunch of people to choose from. You don't have to take our class. The problem we have, especially right now at the end of the semester, is we have 125 students each at the beginning of the semester. And both fortunately and unfortunately, we end up with 125 students. We have very, very few people that ever drop our class. And when we tell them they don't have to be there, well, you can tell them, Eugenia.
It's just we, with the permission of my associate chair, I was allowed to do semi-hybrid. I will put it that way. Our classes are meeting twice a week. So first week is required attendance, and we usually design the whole class, everything, and treat it as an online class. So they have access to every single page we are doing, almost. Of course, we do a little more and interaction in class, but we're teaching both online and in person. So I told my students, and it's in my syllabus, that on Thursdays, it's an optional attendance day. They come only if they need my help. So, and usually I have about 80% attendance on the first day. And out of 24, about 12 students would come on the second day. But these are the students who need me the most. I would sit next to them. I will walk them through that. And those stronger students, because we have dual enrollment students sitting right next to somebody like a working mom who has come after like 10, 12, 15 years of gap. So, and those dual enrollment students can do it on their own. I have a couple of students in each section who would stop attending. They would be submitting all the assignments and getting their A's. So that's what we call agency. We don't want to dominate. And that is really good. I mean that yesterday was almost the last day of class, and I had in that last day of class 15 students. I was surprised not to see everybody, and then I asked a colleague who was walking towards me, how many students did you have? And he's a favorite teacher. He's really great. He said 6. I said, wow, so I'm doing really, really good here, because I thought, where are my 9 students? So
our students tell us that
it means they like it, they find it useful, they still come to class, but I don't want them to come and I tell them I want them to be independent from me.
They do find it useful, and that's the thing, is that they're telling us they're getting something that they need. And our students are saying, how come they're not doing this in other classes? They keep asking me, how come they're not doing this in other classes?
They appreciate it. They do appreciate a little bit of guidance on how to use AI, and it frees them, because everybody blames them for doing that. And we require transparency statement from day one. It's in our syllabus. So for each assignment, the student is required on top to write their transparency statement saying what AI was used, how it was used, and why it was used. And we tell them it's your protection, it's not for me. It's in case I ever challenge you that it was cheating or something, as long as you disclosed with me or anybody else where you are using that. Now it's up to the teacher how to take after that. So they feel much better, and many of them in their last reflections say, we came with an idea that it's cheating, it's bad, we are bad, we are flawed, but it can be used as a tutor. Oh, great, I didn't know, I'm not cheating. They really come up.
Yeah. Lots of different ways to use it to enhance learning.
They need our help. They have been blamed by everybody around for using that. So I think this is very wrong. So we use it, and then it's a hypocrisy. We don't let them use it instead of teaching them how to use it properly.
Yeah. And the last piece of research from the Cengage work group that looked at employers across the U.S., where 72% of employers expect new grads to understand how to use AI effectively, efficiently, and having this notion that there are some ethical aspects to it. I see Karen has also added, one way to protect your privacy is to avoid logging into any AI with third-party sign-in, like sign in with Google, Apple. Just because students don't understand privacy and the implications of the breach doesn't mean we should avoid it or ignore it. All great.
Absolutely, yes, that's a great comment. Thank you, Karen. Absolutely, yeah.
This has been so exciting and so informative. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you for having us.
This has been wonderful. In the chat, I am putting in the link to their latest publication that you can also download as a PDF if you would like. And the link to our college teaching program, which we are incorporating AI into our best practices course and having our students just get into the mud and see how it works. Thank you again so much. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope you have a lovely spring day. Take care.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.